Chapter 1: A Love Blossoms. In the heart of the charming town of Meadowbrook, nestled amid rolling hills and fields of vibrant wildflowers, there bloomed a love story that would echo through the ages. Emma and James, the protagonists of this tale, were the heartbeat of their idyllic town, where time seemed to slow down, and the essence of life lay in the simplest of moments. Emma, a woman with a spirit as untamed as the meadow that surrounded their home, possessed a captivating grace that drew people toward her like bees to a fragrant bloom. Her days were painted in the hues of sunsets and the gentle rustling of leaves, as she dedicated herself to cultivating a garden that mirrored the kaleidoscope of her emotions. The scent of blossoms lingered in the air around their cottage, a testament to the love she poured into every petal. James, a diligent artisan with hands that sculpted dreams from blocks of wood, found solace in the rhythmic sounds of his craft. His workshop, a haven of creativity, echoed with the symphony of chisels meeting wood, a melody that harmonized with the laughter that reverberated through the walls of their cozy home. His eyes, the color of rich mahogany, reflected the warmth of a love that had weathered the seasons. Their love story unfolded against the backdrop of Meadowbrook, a town that cradled their dreams in the embrace of its natural beauty. Cobblestone streets led to markets where the townsfolk gathered, exchanging pleasantries and the latest news. Emma and James, with intertwined fingers and hearts, navigated these streets, their love story becoming a tapestry woven into the very fabric of Meadowbrook's history. The town square, adorned with a majestic oak tree, became a witness to stolen glances and whispered confessions. Beneath its branches, Emma and James carved their initials into the bark, a silent promise of a love that would endure the passage of time. On warm afternoons, they would spread a picnic blanket under the oak's shade, savoring the flavors of homemade sandwiches while sharing dreams that seemed as boundless as the sky above. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in a myriad of warm hues, Emma and James would find themselves on the hillside overlooking Meadowbrook. Hand in hand, they watched as the town below transformed into a twinkling canvas of lights, a sight that mirrored the sparkle in their eyes. It was in these quiet moments that the depth of their connection became palpable, transcending the ordinary to embrace the extraordinary. Their love, like the wildflowers that adorned the meadows, flourished in the openness of their hearts. Emma's laughter, a melody that danced with the wind, became a source of joy for the entire town. James, with his unwavering support and tender gestures, was the anchor that steadied Emma's ship in the stormy seas of life. Meadowbrook, in turn, embraced the couple's love story as its own. The townsfolk celebrated the union of Emma and James as a reflection of the enduring spirit that defined their close-knit community. It was a love that withstood the test of time, a beacon of hope in a world that often seemed chaotic and unpredictable. Little did Emma and James know that the winds of change, though imperceptible in those halcyon days, were beginning to stir. The meadow that had cradled their love story in its gentle arms was about to witness a tempest, a storm that would challenge the very foundation of the love that had blossomed so beautifully under its watchful gaze. As the pages of their story turned, the innocence of their love would soon collide with the harsh realities that awaited them in the chapters yet to unfold.
Chapter 2: Cracks in the Foundation. The town of Meadowbrook, once a haven of tranquility for Emma and James, found itself under the looming shadows of unforeseen challenges. The idyllic life they had crafted together, like a delicate sculpture, began to show the first signs of wear as the winds of adversity whispered through the cobbled streets. James, with hands calloused from the labor of crafting dreams into reality, faced the relentless pressure of providing for their modest household. The carpentry shop, once a sanctuary of creativity, became a battleground where the clinks of tools against wood echoed the silent struggles that James bore. Emma, sensing the weight of his burdens, tried to offer solace with her unwavering support and comforting words, but the distance between them widened with each passing day. The garden that Emma had so meticulously nurtured began to reflect the strain in their relationship. The once vibrant blossoms seemed to droop, mirroring the melancholy that lingered in the air. Emma's laughter, once a harmonious melody, now carried a subtle undertone of concern as she observed the cracks forming in the foundation of their shared dreams. Late nights in the workshop became the norm for James as he sought refuge in his craft, a sanctuary where he could momentarily escape the financial constraints that threatened to unravel the fabric of their happiness. Emma, left alone in the quiet of their home, found herself yearning for the warmth that had begun to fade, replaced by the chill of unspoken worries. The once frequent picnics beneath the oak tree became sporadic, replaced by the demands of a life that seemed determined to erode the joy they had once known. The town square, once a place of shared dreams, now witnessed furtive glances and sighs of resignation as the weight of responsibility bore down on James. As the cracks in their foundation deepened, Emma, with her heart as vast as the open sky, attempted to bridge the growing chasm. She suggested walks through the meadows, hoping the beauty of nature could mend the fractures in their connection. Yet, the walls James had unwittingly erected around himself proved impenetrable, the weight of his struggles creating a fortress that kept Emma at bay. Conversations that were once filled with dreams and laughter now carried the weight of unspoken tensions. Emma, sensing the growing distance, tried to pry open the doors James had closed, but the keys to his inner turmoil seemed elusive. The love that had once painted their world with hues of happiness now struggled to weather the storm that had cast its dark clouds over Meadowbrook. In the midst of their struggles, the winds of change whispered to James, introducing him to a refuge from the tempest that raged within. The local cafe, a place where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the gentle hum of conversation, became an unintended escape. It was here that James, seeking solace in the company of a sympathetic stranger, unknowingly set the stage for a tragedy that would shake the very core of their love story. The cracks in the foundation of their once unshakable bond had paved the way for an unforeseen tempest, a storm that would soon engulf the fragile love that had blossomed in the meadows of Meadowbrook.
Chapter 3: A Fateful Encounter. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air as James, seeking respite from the storms of life, found himself seated in the cozy corner of the local cafe. Meadowbrook's familiar faces blurred into anonymity as he nursed his cup, the warmth seeping through his fingers offering a temporary reprieve from the chill that had settled within him. It was within the walls of this unassuming cafe that fate wove its intricate threads into the narrative of James and Emma's love story. Elise,
a woman with an enigmatic charm that transcended the ordinary, entered the scene. Her entrance, like the gentle rustling of leaves before a storm, went unnoticed by most, but James, caught in the undertow of his own struggles, couldn't help but be drawn to her presence. Their initial exchanges, innocent overtures fueled by shared moments spent over coffee, soon evolved into a connection that ventured beyond the realm of friendship. Elise, with her captivating allure and an understanding gaze that seemed to pierce through the layers James had carefully concealed, became an unwitting confidant. As the walls James had erected around himself crumbled, he found solace in the camaraderie that grew between them. The cafe, once a haven for quiet contemplation, now bore witness to a burgeoning emotional intimacy that went beyond mere companionship. Unbeknownst to Emma, whose days were still adorned with the echo of fading laughter and the fragrant memories of their garden, James was navigating uncharted territories, entangled in a web of emotions he had never anticipated. Elise, sensing the unrest in James's soul, became both a balm and a catalyst for the brewing tempest. Their conversations, originally a refuge from the storms of life, gradually transformed into a source of comfort that bordered on the forbidden. The lines between friendship and something more became blurred, and the winds of change whispered promises of a love that dared to defy the constraints of the life James had known. Meanwhile, Emma, unaware of the quiet revolution transpiring in the heart of her husband, continued to tend to their home with a devotion that mirrored the constancy of the seasons. The garden, once a testament to her love, now stood as a silent witness to the subtle shifts in the winds of their relationship. Emma, like the meadows that surrounded Meadowbrook, harbored an innate resilience, but even the hardiest flowers couldn't escape the inexorable passage of time. As the fateful encounters between James and Elise continued, the invisible threads that bound Emma and James began to fray. The once sturdy foundation of their love, now weakened by unspoken tensions and the weight of unfulfilled dreams, trembled under the weight of the emotional tempest that was brewing. The cafe, once a sanctuary for James, became a crucible where the elements of his inner turmoil collided. Emma, with her heart still tethered to the promises of their shared past, remained blissfully unaware of the storm that was approaching. The unsuspecting town of Meadowbrook, with its cobblestone streets and familiar faces, stood as a backdrop to a tragedy that unfolded quietly, inexorably, in the lives of its cherished residents. In this chapter of their love story, the stage was set for the inevitable collision of choices, desires, and consequences. The winds of change, once distant whispers, had gained strength, and the once steadfast love between Emma and James was about to face a reckoning that would leave its mark on the very fabric of Meadowbrook's history.
Chapter 4: A Heart Divided. As the days unfolded in Meadowbrook, the quaint town witnessed the slow metamorphosis of James and Elise's connection from a comforting refuge to a complex entanglement. James, burdened by the struggles that had cast shadows over his once stable life, found himself drawn to Elise in ways he hadn't anticipated. Their interactions, initially innocent, began to harbor a depth that ventured beyond mere friendship, a truth that echoed through the quiet corners of the town. Emma, with her heart as open as the boundless sky, continued to tend to their home, blissfully unaware of the storm that was brewing within the walls of her marriage. The garden, once a symbol of their shared dreams, now stood as a silent witness to the emotional distance that had taken root. Yet, she pressed on, nurturing the blossoms with a determination that mirrored her commitment to the love she believed was unshakable. In the workshop, where James had once carved the dreams that defined their shared existence, the rhythm of his chisel against wood became a symphony of conflict. The creations that emerged were no longer just pieces of furniture but artifacts of a heart torn between the comfort of familiarity and the allure of newfound passion. The very essence of James's craftsmanship began to reflect the internal struggle he faced. Elise, with her enigmatic charm, became the inadvertent architect of a heart divided. Her presence, like a magnetic force, drew James into uncharted territories of emotions he hadn't explored. As the lines between friendship and something more blurred, James found himself standing at the crossroads of his own desires, a heart divided between the love he had known and the allure of a forbidden connection. The cafe, where the threads of their connection had first woven themselves together, now bore witness to stolen glances and subtle gestures that spoke a language only the two shared. The air was thick with the tension of unspoken words, an invisible barrier that separated the world within those walls from the reality that awaited outside. Emma, with an intuition as sharp as the scent of rain before a storm, began to sense the subtle shifts in James's demeanor. The laughter that had once echoed through their home now seemed muted, replaced by an unsettling quiet. The stolen glances and furtive movements did not escape her watchful eyes, but the truth, like a butterfly dancing just beyond reach, remained elusive. The heart, once a sanctuary for the love that had flourished between Emma and James, now bore the weight of conflicting emotions. James, caught in the undertow of a passion he had not sought, grappled with the guilt that gnawed at his conscience. Elise, who had inadvertently become a silent accomplice to the unraveling love story, questioned the authenticity of the connection that had sparked in the quiet corners of the cafe. As the chapters of their love story unfolded, the complexity of a heart divided became increasingly apparent. Emma, with a steadfast devotion to the vows they had exchanged, remained rooted in the familiarity of the life they had built. James, however, found himself navigating the uncharted waters of a love that promised escape but carried the weight of consequences. In this chapter of their story, the once unbreakable bond between Emma and James faced the challenge of a heart pulled in conflicting directions. The choice between the comfort of the known and the allure of the unknown set the stage for a tragedy that would leave scars on the very fabric of their shared history in Meadowbrook. The winds of change, once gentle whispers, had now become an undeniable force, threatening to reshape the landscape of their love forever.
Chapter 5: The Betrayal. Meadowbrook, once a sanctuary for Emma and James's love, stood on the precipice of a tragedy that would echo through its cobblestone streets and meandering meadows. The winds of change, which had been whispers in the quiet corners of the town, gained strength, heralding the arrival of a tempest that would leave destruction in its wake. In the workshop, where James had once carved dreams into wood, the echo of his chisel against the grain became a symphony of internal conflict. The creations that emerged were not just pieces of furniture but artifacts of a heart torn between the comfort of familiarity and the allure of newfound passion. James, entangled in the complexities of his own desires, faced a moment of reckoning that would alter the course of their love story. Elise, with her enigmatic charm, had become a silent accomplice in the unraveling tale. The café, once a haven for solace, now bore witness to stolen glances and the unspoken tension between James and Elise. The air within its walls crackled with a forbidden energy, an invisible force that defied the tranquility of Meadowbrook. The garden, once the symbol of Emma's unwavering devotion, became a reflection of the turmoil that had taken root in their marriage. The blossoms, once vibrant and alive, seemed to droop under the weight of unspoken words and the distance that had crept into their shared existence. Emma, sensing the impending storm, tried desperately to salvage the fragments of their love, unaware that the tempest had already arrived. It was on a fateful evening, the sky painted in hues of twilight, that James confronted the reality of his divided heart. The workshop, dimly lit and heavy with the scent of sawdust, became the battleground where the internal struggle reached its climax. The weight of guilt, like a relentless anchor, held James captive as he faced the undeniable truth. He had allowed a connection with Elise to burgeon into a love that threatened to eclipse the life he had known with Emma. In the moonlit shadows of Meadowbrook, James made a choice that would forever alter the tapestry of their shared history. With a heavy heart and words heavy with the weight of betrayal, he confessed his feelings to Elise, unwittingly sealing the fate of the love that had once flourished between him and Emma. The gravity of the moment hung in the air like a storm cloud, casting a dark shadow over the very essence of their shared existence. Emma, blissfully unaware of the tumult that had unfolded in the workshop, continued to navigate the quiet corridors of their home with a heart steeped in trust. As the echoes of James's confession lingered in the air, the reality of betrayal settled over the town like an uninvited guest. The gentle wind that had once carried tales of enduring love now whispered of heartbreak and shattered promises. The news struck Emma like a thunderbolt on a clear day. The home that had once echoed with laughter now resonated with the deafening silence of betrayal. Emma, shattered by the revelation, found herself standing at the crossroads of disbelief and heartache. The garden, once a haven of shared dreams, became a haunting reminder of the fragility of the love she had believed to be unshakable. As the storm of betrayal raged through their lives, the threads that had bound Emma and James began to unravel. The choice that James had made in the workshop, born from a heart divided, became the catalyst for a tragedy that would leave scars on the very fabric of their love story. Meadowbrook, with its quaint charm and meandering meadows, now stood witness to the wreckage of a once beautiful love, a love that had been torn asunder by the betrayal that had taken root in its midst.
Chapter 6: The Fragility of Happiness. In the aftermath of James's confession, Meadowbrook, once a haven for love and laughter, stood enveloped in a heavy silence. The tempest of betrayal had swept through the town, leaving behind the shattered fragments of Emma and James's once unshakable bond. The fragility of their happiness, once as delicate as a dew-kissed morning, now lay exposed to the harsh reality of broken promises. The workshop, where dreams had once been carved into existence, became a haunting space tainted with the echoes of a confession that had shattered the foundations of their shared life. James, grappling with the aftermath of his choices, found himself caught in the undertow of remorse as the weight of his actions bore down on his shoulders. Emma, the unsuspecting victim of a love now stained by betrayal, wandered through the quiet halls of their home like a ghost of the past. The laughter that had once echoed through those walls now hung in the air as a melancholic memory, a reminder of the fragility that underpinned the happiness they had believed to be unassailable. The garden, once a testament to Emma's nurturing spirit, withered under the weight of emotional turmoil. The vibrant blossoms, now tinged with the shadows of heartache, mirrored the state of their love story. Emma, with tear-stained eyes, tried desperately to breathe life back into the petals that drooped like the dreams she had once shared with James. In the quiet corners of Meadowbrook, whispers of the tragedy spread like wildfire. Friends and neighbors, who had once marveled at the enduring love between Emma and James, now exchanged hushed conversations about the fragility of happiness and the unpredictability of human emotions. The once cobbled streets seemed lonelier, and the town square, where shared dreams had been etched into the very fabric of Meadowbrook, now bore witness to the somber reflection of a community grappling with the unraveling of a love story that had been woven into the town's identity. As the days passed, James, haunted by the consequences of his choices, found himself wandering through the desolate meadows that had once been the backdrop to their happiness. The wind, now carrying tales of regret, tousled his hair as he confronted the realization that the pursuit of a fleeting passion had cost him the stability he had taken for granted. Elise, too, grappled with the aftermath of the choices made in the shadowy corners of the cafe. The connection that had once promised an escape now lay severed, leaving her to navigate the wreckage of a relationship that had been built on the ruins of another. Meanwhile, Emma, with a heart still tethered to the remnants of their love, faced the daunting task of rebuilding her life from the debris of shattered dreams. The fragility of happiness, once masked by the blissful ignorance of trust, had now become a poignant truth that lingered in the corners of her gaze and the tremor in her voice. The garden, despite Emma's determined efforts, bore scars that mirrored the landscape of her heart. The petals, though showing signs of resilience, bore the indelible marks of a love that had been tested and found wanting. Meadowbrook, with its meandering meadows and cobblestone streets, now carried the weight of a collective sorrow, a shared acknowledgement of the fragility that underscored the very essence of happiness. In this chapter of their love story, the once golden glow of their happiness had dimmed, replaced by the harsh light of reality. The fragility of happiness, a truth that resonated through the silent corridors of their shared existence, became the crucible in which Emma, James, and the town of Meadowbrook would confront the complexities of healing and the possibility of a new dawn.
Chapter 7: The Loneliness of Regret. In the aftermath of the betrayal that had shattered the once tranquil Meadowbrook, a heavy cloak of regret settled over the town like a pervasive fog. The echoes of James's choices lingered in the air, casting a somber pallor over the landscape. The loneliness of regret seeped into every corner, leaving Emma, James, and the town's residents to grapple with the aftermath of a love story unraveled. The workshop, once a haven for creativity, now stood as a silent witness to James's solitude. The tools, once wielded with purpose, lay dormant, mirroring the inertia that had seized his spirit. The weight of regret hung heavy on his shoulders, an oppressive force that drowned the melodies of inspiration that had once filled the space. Emma, with a heart resilient yet scarred, faced the loneliness of regret in the hallowed halls of their home. The laughter that had once danced through the rooms now seemed like a distant memory, drowned out by the hollow sound of footsteps echoing against walls that had borne witness to a love betrayed. The garden, once a source of solace, now felt like a metaphor for the tangled emotions that choked the life out of their shared dreams. The townsfolk, too, navigated the loneliness of regret as they watched the unraveling of a love story that had been woven into the very fabric of Meadowbrook. Gossip and speculation hung in the air, intertwining with the pervasive sense of loss that cast a pall over their close-knit community. The town square, once a gathering place for shared celebrations, now stood as a monument to the collective sorrow etched into the heart of Meadowbrook. James, haunted by the consequences of his choices, wandered the meadows in search of redemption. The once vibrant fields, now tinged with the melancholy of regret, stretched before him like an expanse of uncharted territory. The loneliness of regret echoed in each footstep, a stark reminder of the irreversible damage caused by the pursuit of fleeting desires. Elise, too, grappled with the solitude of regret as she confronted the fallout of a connection that had promised liberation but delivered heartache. The cafe, once a refuge, now felt like a mausoleum of what could have been, a place where the whispers of regret reverberated in the emptiness between tables and the lingering scent of coffee. Emma, caught in the crossfire of emotions, faced the daunting task of rebuilding her life amidst the ruins of her shattered dreams. The loneliness of regret clung to her like a shadow, a constant companion in the silent moments of introspection. She sifted through the remnants of their shared past, grappling with the weight of unanswered questions and the hollow echoes of what once was. In the quiet moments of reflection, James began to comprehend the gravity of the pain he had inflicted upon Emma. The realization of the irreparable damage, coupled with the isolation of regret, became a heavy burden that he carried like a solitary traveler on an endless journey. Meadowbrook, once a tapestry woven with the threads of enduring love, now bore the scars of regret etched into the collective consciousness of its residents. The loneliness of regret became the common language spoken in the exchanged glances and the shared moments of silence between neighbors. As the chapter unfolded, the loneliness of regret became a poignant backdrop to the characters' journeys, Emma's resilience, James's remorse, and the town's collective mourning. In the quiet spaces where regret lingered, the possibility of redemption and healing awaited, like a distant glimmer of hope on the horizon of their shared history.
Chapter 8: A Desperate Plea. In the subdued aftermath of betrayal and regret that lingered over Meadowbrook, a chapter unfolded marked by the echoes of a desperate plea. The once cherished town, now shadowed by the complexities of fractured relationships, bore the weight of the emotional turmoil that had unraveled the tapestry of Emma and James's love story. James, grappling with the profound loneliness of regret, found himself standing at the precipice of a realization, a recognition of the irreparable damage his choices had wrought upon the life he had built with Emma. The workshop, once a sanctuary of creativity, now echoed with the silent cries of remorse as he confronted the haunting truth of his actions. In a moment of desperate clarity, James penned a letter, a fragile plea that sought to bridge the chasm between his heart and Emma's wounded spirit. The words, etched with the ink of remorse, carried the weight of an apology, a confession, and a plea for forgiveness. The letter became a vessel, sailing through the tumultuous seas of regret in the hopes of reaching the shores of Emma's battered heart. The town square, where shared dreams had once been celebrated, served as the backdrop for the unfolding drama. James, driven by the urgency of his plea, sought out Emma in the place where their love story had first taken root. The once familiar cobblestone streets became a path of penance, each step carrying the weight of the emotions he had long suppressed. Emma, in the solitude of her grief, stood near the majestic oak tree where they had once etched their initials, a symbol of a love that had weathered storms. The garden, with its petals still bearing the scars of betrayal, surrounded her like a silent witness to the unraveling tragedy. As James approached, the air crackled with a tension that mirrored the fragile state of their shared history. With a trembling voice, James poured his heart out in a desperate plea for understanding. He bared his soul, laying bare the depths of his remorse and the realization of the love he had foolishly jeopardized. The town, in collective hush, seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Emma's response to the plea that hung in the air like a fragile prayer. Emma, her eyes reflecting a mosaic of emotions, listened to James's words. The winds whispered through the leaves, carrying the weight of unspoken sentiments that swirled around the oak tree. The letter, though a testament to James's sincerity, could not erase the scars that marred the once untarnished canvas of their love. The townsfolk, who had observed the unraveling drama with bated breath, found themselves entangled in the raw emotions that permeated the air. The town square, once a place of shared joy, became a theater of vulnerability and a canvas upon which the complexities of forgiveness and redemption were painted. In the desperate plea that echoed through the meadows of Meadowbrook, a fragile hope emerged, a flicker of possibility that love, even in the face of betrayal, could find a way to mend what seemed irreparably broken. The oak tree, once a silent witness to their promises, now bore witness to a pivotal moment in their journey, a moment where the threads of their love story hung in delicate balance. As the chapter unfolded, the town of Meadowbrook grappled with the repercussions of a desperate plea that sought to breathe life back into a love on the brink of collapse. The winds of change, now carrying the scent of remorse and the promise of redemption, stirred the meadows and whispered of a future uncertain yet pregnant with the potential for healing.
Chapter 9: The Irreversible Damage. In the wake of James's desperate plea, Meadowbrook found itself suspended in a poignant moment of contemplation, where the repercussions of betrayal and regret cast a long shadow over the town. The fragile hope that James had offered hung in the air like a delicate thread, weaving through the collective consciousness of the residents. However, the undeniable reality of irreversible damage loomed, challenging the very foundations of Emma and James's once-cherished love story. Emma, standing beneath the towering oak tree that had witnessed the genesis of their shared history, held the weight of James's words in her heart. The garden, a reflection of their love, seemed to sway with the unspoken emotions that lingered in the air. The irreversible damage inflicted upon their relationship became palpable, etched into the very soil from which their dreams had once blossomed. As the town square became a silent theater for the emotional turmoil that unfolded, Emma faced the daunting task of confronting the consequences of James's choices. The once cobbled streets bore witness to the irreparable fractures that had fractured the once solid ground upon which their love had been built. The eyes of the townsfolk mirrored the collective sorrow etched into the town's history. James, haunted by the realization that his actions had set irreversible forces into motion, stood in the heavy silence, awaiting Emma's response. The workshop, where dreams had once taken shape, now loomed as a symbol of the irreparable damage caused by the pursuit of fleeting desires. The creations that emerged from his hand seemed to carry the weight of the choices that had shattered the sanctity of their shared life. The winds whispered through the meadows, carrying tales of irreversible damage that extended beyond the confines of Emma and James's home. The tendrils of pain reached into the very heart of Meadowbrook, a once thriving community now grappling with the fractures that had emerged in the wake of betrayal. Emma, with eyes that reflected a kaleidoscope of emotions, spoke words heavy with the truth of irreversible damage. The depth of her hurt, though submerged beneath a veneer of composure, echoed through the town like a mournful melody. The garden, where the blossoms now bore the scars of heartache, became a visual metaphor for the irreversible changes that had altered the landscape of their shared existence. In the desolation of Meadowbrook, the realization of irreversible damage became a pervasive undercurrent. The oak tree, once a symbol of enduring love, stood witness to a love story that had been fractured beyond repair. The once sturdy foundation had crumbled, leaving behind the ruins of what had once been a sanctuary of happiness. The townsfolk, grappling with their own reflections in the mirror of Emma and James's struggles, faced the uncomfortable truth that some wounds could not be healed. The intricacies of human relationships, the delicate dance of trust, and the fragility of love were laid bare in the aftermath of irreversible damage. As the chapter unfolded, the town of Meadowbrook became a canvas upon which the harsh strokes of reality painted a picture of heartache and shattered dreams. The winds of change, once hopeful, now carried the somber notes of acceptance, a recognition that, sometimes, the irreversible damage inflicted upon a love story left scars too deep to be erased. The once cherished meadows, now tainted by the complexities of human frailty, awaited the uncertain future that lay beyond the irreparable fractures that had reshaped the town's history.
Chapter 10, A Bittersweet Farewell. In the concluding chapter of the Meadowbrook saga, the town found itself at a crossroads defined by heartache, acceptance, and the poignant realization that some wounds, no matter how deep, could eventually heal. The narrative unfolded against the backdrop of a bittersweet farewell, echoing through the cobblestone streets, the meadows, and the quiet corners that had borne witness to the tumultuous love story of Emma and James. Emma, with a heart worn but resilient, stood amidst the garden that had once been a sanctuary of shared dreams. The blossoms, though scarred by the storms of irreparable damage, still carried a whisper of hope. The garden, like Emma herself, had weathered the tempest and stood as a testament to the strength that could emerge from the ashes of shattered dreams. James, haunted by the echoes of his choices, confronted the reality that their love story had reached its denouement. The workshop, once filled with the symphony of chisels against wood, now stood in silence, a reflection of the irreparable fractures that had fractured the very essence of their shared existence. The creations that emerged from his hands bore the indelible marks of a journey that had, regrettably, led to a bittersweet farewell. As the townsfolk navigated the aftermath of the irreversible damage that had marked their community, the collective consciousness of Meadowbrook became a tapestry woven with threads of sorrow and the promise of resilience. The town square, where shared celebrations had once echoed, now bore witness to a farewell imbued with a poignant acknowledgement of the complexities inherent in the human experience. Emma and James, standing before the majestic oak tree that had cradled their promises, faced the inevitability of a bittersweet farewell. The once tangled threads of their love story had now unwoven, leaving behind a narrative that, though marred by betrayal and regret, carried the weight of profound lessons and the potential for growth. The winds of change, which had once whispered tales of love and hope, now stirred the meadows with the subtle notes of acceptance. The oak tree, with its branches reaching toward the sky, stood as a silent witness to the farewell, a farewell that marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another for both Emma and James. In the quiet of the farewell, Emma's gaze held a mixture of sadness and newfound strength. The garden, though scarred, seemed to stretch toward the horizon in anticipation of a renewal that awaited beyond the confines of the town. James, burdened by the irreversible damage he had caused, bore the weight of the lessons learned and the acceptance that some choices could not be undone. As the final chapter of the Meadowbrook saga unfolded, the residents of the town grappled with the complexity of farewells and the inevitability of change. The meadows, once the canvas of their shared dreams, embraced the collective sorrow and the potential for rebirth with an openness that mirrored the resilience of the human spirit. The bittersweet farewell, though tinged with the shadows of heartache, carried within it the seeds of hope for a future yet unknown. The town of Meadowbrook, with its cobblestone streets and meandering meadows, stood resilient in the face of a love story that had unraveled, proving that even in farewells, there lay the promise of new beginnings, a promise that echoed through the winds and the very soul of Meadowbrook.